Hi there, and thanks for joining me. So, for the last 20 odd years, I've been making my own Christmas cards. And one of the mediums I like to use for my Christmas cards is encausticing. Now, anyone who's not familiar with what encausticing is, it's when you paint with melted wax. And it dates from the Roman period in ancient Egypt, so that's a few hundred AD. And if you've ever seen a sarcophagus that has an actual sort of portrait on the front of it, so not like a representation like the time of Tutankhamun, but an actual sort of portrait on the front of the sarcophagus that's been painted, that's painted with encaustic art. So they painted that with melted wax. Now that's completely different to the way I'm going to be using it today. Today I'm going to be using a craft iron and some styluses for my encaustic art. And they make sort of like mythical sort of representation pictures that I then include in my Christmas cards. So I've got my special, you have to use sort of special encaustic paper. So I've got some special encaustic paper here, and I've got all my waxes in front of me here. I've got quite a lot of whites, as you might see. That's because I'm actually going to be trying to do snowy scenes today for the Christmas cards. Encaustic art is actually really good for making beautiful, bright colours, pictures and that sort of thing. I'm not going to be doing that today. I'm just going to be concentrating on trying to do the sort of white snow scenes for my Christmas cards. I've also got loads of other colours here. As you can see, a lot of them are quite well used. I will be popping into these boxes from time to time as and when I need them. And I tend to paint very much by feel, and I sort of start. I can't really tell you what I'm going to be doing from one minute to the next. I just kind of go, oh, I fancy doing this and I fancy doing that, and lots of different designs come out. So I should get started, and I should try and tell you what I'm doing as I go along. But excuse me if I'm a bit quieter than normal, because I like to concentrate when I do this. So you start off with the little encaustic iron, and you just want to put some paint onto the base of the iron. So I do have lots of different colour whites, but some of them are actually pearl white, and they kind of annoy me because they're not really white, and they don't create such good seams. And I think that might be a pearl white one. So I want my white. I bought white recently, and they do tend to get a bit mucky. So let's get started. So I'm going to want to do a sky. So I have a bit of I want them to be pale though. I don't want it to be too bright because it's supposed to be like a winter sky. Maybe a little bit of yellow in there. And we just put it on the card. Oh, got some flecks on there, don't want that. Put it on the card and then just drag it along. And it creates a sky scene. If you don't like what it does, you just put some more wax on your iron and do it again. Okay, so that's actually going to be quite a bright skyline there, which is quite lovely. And it's quite a mucky art because obviously you end up with wax all around it. So use some scrap paper underneath. And then I'm going to use a lot of white now. I will use up my little bits of white, even though they've got bits of green and blue in them. That's not the end of the world because I'm going to want that to give the snow some definition. You just use the iron to go across the land like this. And this creates a little snowy scene. And that there's pulled a little bit too much of the colour from the sky down, so I'll just go over that again. And then we create a little snowy scene. And I get some colour. I'm going to create some foliage at the front of the scene. Just sort of dab it on the front and it creates that little sort of foliage at the front. And then you can get the edge of the craft iron and then swipe up to create like fronds of a plant. And I'm using the tip here as well. So you use the tip and the edge to create these sort of reedy effects. And then you might see I've also got some styluses here. Now one of them is a round stylus. That's ideal for making suns with, or moons. So I feel like this needs to be gold coloured card or silver. I do like silver a lot. I think I'll go for gold with this one. So I'm going to melt some gold wax onto my little round stylus, and I'm going to put a sun in the sky here. And I'm going to put some flowers in the forefront here. Now I actually quite like using red for the flowers, and they become like little poppies really. I'm not really making a poppy scene as such, but I quite like in red flowers. Just adds a bit of colour to the pictures. I'll just do some little flecks at the front here. And a little bit of green to do the stalk or the flowers. So in this style of encaustic, it's not as particularly sort of super realistic style of encaustic. It's sort of more of a representation style. And then I always like to put a little gold or silver if I'm using silver on that particular painting. Dabble on the flowers just because, well, I like to do that. Sort of adds a bit of sparkle. I've mentioned in my previous videos, I'm most definitely a magpie. So all my pictures end up quite sparkly, and it is Christmas pictures, so it's going to be, isn't it? And I shall add little dots of colour onto the plants. Might use a bit of pink as well. So like it's got some sort of flowery buds on it. And then I'm going to add a couple birds into the sky as well. I quite like the birds in the sky. Now this is just plain wax, which is really handy for cleaning the stylus up of any colour. It's a little bit of a funny shaped block now, but it does the trick. And I should put the birds into the sky. So a little dollop of wax, and then turn them into little birds. And I might do the one little one down there as well. There we go, and they look like little birds in the sky. Once the wax is dry, which really doesn't take very long at all, give it a wipe over with a tissue, and it brings it up all lovely and shiny. And there you go. The first encaustic picture. So that's got a bit more colour in it than I would normally like. I say it's not an exact science when you paint with encaustic in. There's a whole variety of things that can change the colour of a painting. I'll probably put a little bit more colour in the sky. So I'm going to do the next one. I want to clean off my iron, make sure I don't have too much paint lurking in the seam there. At the end of the board if I do, and I should start again. So again I should start with white, and maybe a little bit of blue for the sky this time, and see what comes out. Didn't have enough wax on the paper there, so you just put a little bit more. Now my white is actually pearl. I said that quite often is the case with these paints, a bit of a pain. So I should try and put another white on. Oh, see, that's pearl as well, I think. I'll do white. There we are. So that's quite a bluey sky, isn't it? So what should we do this time? I think maybe we would do one of the castles. A little purple on to get a bit of colour, I think. Okay, and here I'm going to use the stylus this time, and with black and, oh, that's not black. Neither is that. There's my black paint. Oh, there it is. Black and brown. Very holy. You can see I always use the stylus with these. And I like mixing the two colours together. It just adds a little bit more texture. And these castles are quite fairy looking castles, really. Not really realistic castles. More the sort of castle you might find in a Snow White fairy tale or something like that, really. Okay. When I use the iron again, just to come along and go along the castle like that, and it makes it look like the castle's behind the snowy scene. Put another, and then we use a little bit of pink and blue at the front here, or sorry, pink and green at the front here, just to add a bit of detail, so it looks like we're looking behind like a grassy verge. So look at the scene behind there. And again, I'm just going to use the sweeping end of this to give some reeds. I quite like the reed effect on Encaustic. It sort of works really nicely. And my stylus is a little bit dirty from when I made the castle. I didn't clean it up, so I'll just clean that up. And again, I think I'm going to put red flowers in the front here, because otherwise if I used pink flowers or something like that, you wouldn't see them. I quite like red for Christmas. Adds a bit of colour to a painting. And I'll just paint in some little stalks for the flowers. And this scene is definitely going to be a silver scene. So I shall pop a little bit of silver into each of the flowers. And I shall also put some silver onto these plants growing up here as well. So initially, the picture looked very blue, didn't it? You're thinking, oh my goodness, there's no colour in this scene at all. And you just put a little bit of colour in the forefront, a little bit of sparkly silver, and it soon comes to life. And this time you don't have to put a moon or sun in all your pictures if you don't want to, but I quite like them, especially, as I say, for the Christmas scene. So I should pop a moon over here, I think. I much prefer the silver wax. It works far better. It covers far nicer. And, oh, I might even do little birds. I like little birds. I know it's a bit cliche, but I do like my little birds in the sky. Again, I get some silver paint. Make a little, that's not big enough dollop, make a little dollop. Then do their little wings. Smaller ones obviously are further away. And then what you can do at the castle as well is you can inscribe, you use a little inscriber tool here and just inscribe away bits of the wax, and then it looks like there's little windows in the castle. So you just imagine like Rapunzel or somebody being in there. I always like to give like a little door at the front. And again, we'll just wait for that to dry. It hasn't quite dried yet with the moon, so I'll give that a few minutes to dry. And then we'll give that a wax. Oh, sorry. And we'll give that a rub with the tissue and it will come up shiny again. So yes, it's all nice and dry now. So hopefully you can see in the camera that it's a bit dull before you do this. And then you buff it up with the tissue. It all goes lovely and shiny. And there you go. There's like a little castle scene one there. Hopefully, because it's white and blue, it's Christmassy enough. You see, there's two different styles there, two different techniques. So one, well, very similar techniques actually. Both of them have got rolling hills, and this one I've put a castle in. So I think we will try a hill next, and then I'll do just some more. Say I've got about 40 cards to make to give to people, so I've got an awful lot I need to do. So I should just carry on filming as I make, I think. Whether or not I managed to make all 40 today, will wait to be seen, but we should carry on. So let's have a little think about what colour sky I want. So I don't really plan much, actually. I just kind of think, oh, what should I do this time? And I just sort of put some colours in and see what effect we get. And that's not quite covered the sky, so I'll do a little bit more. Well, that's quite a nice pale sky, isn't it? So, and then what we'll do this time is we'll do some hills going into the sky. And the hills work quite nicely in the dark colours. So I've got dark blue, dark green, and a brown there, and they work quite nice for the hills. For the hills, you just use the point of the iron, and you use the point of the iron, and you get some hills. Now, obviously, further down here, it looks like it's just an iron that's made those hills, doesn't it? So what we can do, and what's really quite nice, is we then use the iron to sort of make a line across where we think the hills would be, the end of, maybe a bit higher than that actually. And if you use a tissue to rub the wax away when it's almost dry, but not totally dry, that was a bit early. Oh, that's still too wet. You can get like a sort of lake effect, really. I think the lights are causing it to be warmer than I'd expect. And there we go, we created a sort of lake effect there. And again, we can put our foliage in the front. I should do sort of bright foliage, I think. Again, I quite like the pinks and the greens. I don't think you can beat them for the foliage. The mountains have turned out quite dark, actually. So we should do the foliage on the front. Say it just looks like there's like a riverbank or something, doesn't it? And that's a bit of a blob going on there. I'm not sure I like that. So we'll just see if we can't rub that down a little bit. There we go. And we'll do the same with this. Make these look a little bit more watery there. So I use the iron on a slightly more of an angle to give the thicker reeds effect. And even this one that ended up being a bit darker than I would have liked. By the time you put the colour in the foliage and the front and the reeds and the birds and the sky and silver in the sky, it sort of brings it to life a little bit, doesn't it? Okay, so we're going to do mountains in this one. So I should add a little bit more colour to the sky. And we'll come across and we'll do the sky. And we missed a bit. So come across and do the sky again. But it's really forgiving. You can go across it as many times as you like. And if you decide you don't like something, you can go across it again until you get a colour that you like. And the mountains work quite well if you use the darker colours for the mountains. I've got a purple somewhere that's actually quite nice. That's purple. And then you just go use the tip of the iron and then you can use the iron to wipe away any excess wax, and then you can use this to create like little islands on the bottom of the mountains, so it looks like there's some sort of a foliage around the mountains. And then you can use a tissue once this is dry, and you can let it dry a little bit more. See, encaustic ink gives this wonderful effect here, doesn't it? Makes wonderful scenes. That would be really good for like a underwater scene, wouldn't it? I've done some underwater scenes before. And then you can use a tissue just to wipe away some of the wax, and it gives the effect of there being like a river, or a lake rather, at the bottom of the mountains, which is rather nice. Oops. Didn't want to do that. I want to get away some of this dark colour at the front because I'm going to want to put my sort of front scene on. So I'll do this effect but at the front, and then it makes it look like there's a nice sort of lake in front of the mountains. So again, I always use the same colours, but just because they work really well. And we will come along and we will pop on some sort of a indication of there being like a ridge, and you're looking down into the lake with the mountains behind. I'm going to use silver on this one again. So I should put a silver sun in the sky. I should use the edge of the iron just to create some more of the reeds. I think the reeds just give it that extra dimension. Without them, it's a little bit sort of bland, and I really like the reeds. You can go quite high with them as well, and gives you somewhere to sort of attach the flowers onto as well. As many or as few of them as you prefer. And again, we'll put some flowers in the forefront. What should we do this time? Let's do some silver flowers for a change, shall we? I should just paint in some silver flowers here. So it's a mythical world, so it doesn't really matter that silver flowers don't really exist, does it? And this time we'll put a red dot on the silver flower rather than rather than a silver dot on a red flower, we'll put a red dot on a silver flower. And we'll just use the green to create a little stem to give the idea it is actually a flower growing out of there. Well, that one almost already had a stem, didn't it? And I think we would just use some silver and red on the ferns as well to give the idea there's some little buds growing up there. Adds a bit of sparkle to the picture. So we want pictures to be lovely and sparkly for Christmas. Well, looks like two little eyes there. I'm not happy about that. That's silver. And oh, what do we reckon? Do we want some birds? I think we need birds. I always put birds on my picture. As I say, these are Christmas cards, so I shall carry on. Now, one of the things you can do with encausticing, which is rather nice, is you can use a stamp underneath, and then you can encaust it over the top of it. So in the past, I've used like Christmas stamps on our Father Christmas and his reindeer, and encaustic it over the top of it, and that works really beautifully. But I'm not going to be doing that today, but that is a technique you can use, which is rather nice. And again, with a bit of tissue, you want to polish it up, and then you create a nice shiny picture. This one's not very white, so it's not very Christmassy, but I don't think that matters too much. Or if I'm not happy with it as a Christmas scene, I shall save it and it will become like a birthday card or something like that. And there we go. One of the mountains on it with the lake in the front. And the next scene, I think, we'll go back to doing the sort of a snowy scenes, I think. And the snowy scenes do sort of lend themselves to the hillside. And I quite like the castles, to be honest. So let's try another snowy scene with castles. I'll just give my iron a bit of a clean because we'll be using it for sort of quite dark colours. Get a new bit of a kitchen mould, clean that up. And I will put, this time, a little bit of sparkle in the sky. And we'll do a little bit of pink in the sky, I think. With a touch of blue. And we will go across the sky and it's a bit, that's the trouble with encausticing, it's really easy to do that. So say you just put some more on your iron and do it again. And then we'll get a snowy scene, I think. We've got an awful lot of pink already in the picture, so I will use that to drag down the snow. It's going to be a sort of pinky snowy scene, I think. Use some white, and I'll do a hill going from that side over to there. And I will put in a castle. This here would be quite a nice spot for a castle. We've got the silver on this one. This one's gone really shiny. It's actually quite hard to see. Can't see what I'm doing. It's like trying to drive and the sun's really low. Can't see a thing. I always like them to look a little bit like they're some sort of just mystical castle, like they would be in a fairy tale or something like that. And obviously, I mean, you can draw whatever castle you like. You can do a more accurate representation of a castle if you wanted to, but that's not really my style. Of course, everybody paints differently and everyone draws differently. So it's entirely up to you what you do, and I'm sure people will come up with the most wonderful designs. It's a lovely hobby. It's a superb hobby, especially if you like making your own cards and what have you. And all you need is a little craft iron, and you could get away with not having the circular moon-shaped stylus, or you could swap them. That's what I used to do when I first started. I just had the one stylus and to swap the pieces over. Obviously, it gets really hot. It's not very easy to swap the pieces over, so I very quickly got two styluses. Tangled up here. I'm just going to come back down here, and it's quite nice if you just grab a little bit of the castle with it. It just makes the castle look like it's hiding behind the hill rather than in front of the hill. And I should put maybe just a little bit of, I don't know, I'd say colour, but I'm not sure I want colour. It's very pink, isn't it? And I should put another dune going off over to there. And again, I will put my foliage at the front just because I think it works really nicely. You don't have to if you don't want to, but well, I like it. And so these are my Christmas cards. So just put a bit of green on the front here, I think. And the wax is actually taking longer to dry than it normally does do. And I think that's because I've got lights around me, because this part of the house is really dark. And it's very difficult to see what I'm doing. So I've got lights here. And I think it's actually making it quite warm. So it's making the wax take longer to dry than usual. And I should put some more of those little ferns coming up. And again, I quite like doing the effect of the silver flowers we had last time. It's a very silvery picture, isn't it? So I should do silver flowers, I think. And I don't know if I want to introduce red. I think I should put blue in instead. I should give the flowers a little bit of detail, put a bit of blue on. Although the blue is mixing well with the silver, so it just looks like silver. And a little bit of green for the stalk again. I do have a different colour green, but I think I should stick with the same colour green rather than introduce too many different colours. And maybe a little bit of silver going up the trees, up the ferns here. And I think we definitely need a silver. Our moon, I guess, would be in the sky, wouldn't it? Or sun, who knows? I'll pop one over here, I think. And I'm not sure we need any birds in that sky because it's a very silvery sky to start with. So I'll just wait for that to dry a little bit, and then I'll give it a bit of polish with a tissue. And what I normally do with my cards as well is I use some encaustic sealer over the top, because that just means that they'll end up get scratched and what have you. Part of the reason why I do this is because my friends are very appreciative of my handmade cards, and they're lovely. And most of them never throw one of my cards away because they say they can't because they're handmade. So that's rather lovely. And family as well. So otherwise I wouldn't do it. If they ended up in the bin, I just wouldn't do it, you know. But the fact they all appreciate them, some of them even frame them, it's lovely. And because we've done a little castle, I think I will just put some windows in the castle to give the idea that there perhaps is somebody living in there. So it gives the impression of there being a door there. Got to be a little bit careful with the windows. It's really easy to overdo them. Before you know it, it looks a bit like there's too many windows in the castle. And that's that one. Oh, very, very pink and very, very silvery. So how many have I done so far? 5. Only another 35 to go. Start on the next one. Some greenish sky this time, I think. A bit unusual, but it shows it's wintry, doesn't it? Some of these colours are opaque, so they're not ideal because You do this and you can't quite see where they are. And I should do another castle because I like doing the castles. I should do quite a large castle here, I think, just because I fancy it. I tend to do 3 spires, but you can do as many spires as you like on your castle. There you go, there's my castle done, and I'll just sweep around that because I say it always makes it look like sort of sitting behind the hill if you do that. And I'll just do another hill over here, I think, make this quite a hilly scene. There we go, I think, and I'm saying lots of things. I think. And we'll just get this and we'll do the scene in front of it. It does make a nice effect, doesn't it? It really does look like there's some sort of foliage in the foreground there. I'm not chatting quite as much as I do in some of my videos, I'm afraid, so I have to concentrate a little bit when I do this. Tricky not to, because otherwise I'd be burning my fingers and everything. Touch wood, I don't normally burn myself. I don't do it half as often as I should, because it's such a lovely hobby. But, you know, life gets in the way, doesn't it, and everything. And you know what it's like. Never enough hours in the day, is there? And big flower there, that's not too bad. Put some silver on the flowers. Put some silver up here as well, I think. And this one, because the sky's so dark, I'm actually going to put some birds in the sky because I think it would just break up this big colour of blue, green rather. And there's the little birds. Again, get a tissue, make you're confident it's all dry, and polish it up again, and then it goes all lovely and shining. There's greens and blues in that one to give the idea of which you've seen. So that's me having made 5 cards towards my about 40 cards I make a year. So we've got a few castle scenes. We've got this one here, the lovely pink and the silver one. Got a blue and a green one, and we've got a blue castle scene one there. So I always think these make nice Christmas cards. I like the castle ones, but I do try and not always just do castles. And I've done a couple of mountain scenes, and the mountains always look quite good with a lake in front of them, because otherwise if you take the mountains down too far it becomes quite obvious you've used a craft iron because they get the shape of the iron down here. But if you finish it off with a lake in front of the mountains, I think they always look quite lovely. And I do like the lake effect that you can create just by rubbing with a tissue once the wax is beginning to go hard. And there's another mountain scene one there. And then the very first one I did, which is this one here, which has little bit more colour in it than I would like. That always seems to be the case with the first card I do on Encaustic In. I have no idea why. Because everything's warmed up the way it should be, but I think sometimes the iron likes to have a little bit of a coating of wax on it for it to behave the way I'm expecting. And my first card always ends up way more colourful than I kind of want it to be. But that's a bit more straightforward and plain with just the snowy hills and again the flowers in the forefront. And that one's one that's got gold suns and gold birds on it. So I hope you've enjoyed having a look at my encaustic cards and see how I make them. I say this is how I make my Christmas cards most years. Sometimes I don't get time and do something slightly different, but for the last quite a few years I've been doing encaustic cards and my friends and family really appreciate them, so I continue to do it. I've got another about 35 cards to make, which I will continue to do. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing how I make my Christmas cards. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you've enjoyed watching it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.